So let's have a look. Yes, we are live now on Facebook. Okay, we're recording here as well. We're going to mute everybody. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So nice to see you again. It's nice to see that people who spent an hour with us before are willing to spend another half an hour with me. So that's very, very reassuring. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you to those who joined us on Zoom. Thank you for those who've joined us on Facebook. And thank you as well for those of you who joined us on Torah Anytime. Please visit Torah Anytime for any great Torah content. Many, many different topics. Great, great Torah content. Okay, so tonight I want to share with you one or two ideas about the Megillah, but before we share an idea about the Megillah, I'd like to share an idea in this week's Sedra about the Choshen. So we read over here that Aaron was given 8 special clothes. The other Kohanim were given 4 special clothes, but Aaron was given 8 special clothes. One of them is the Choshen. You have the Choshen, the ephod. The Choshen was a breastplate. The ephod was a special apron. Me'il was a tunic. Ksones was a shirt. Ksones Tashbe, it's a box-like nick. Mitznefes, a hat. And Avnei, the belt. And Michnasayim, also trousers. So those were the 8 things. And a regular Kohen had the hat, the shirt, the belt, and the trousers, and did not have the other things that I mentioned, Choshen, ephod, Me'il. And there's also the tzitz, which is not mentioned over here as well, which was a special thing that was put on the head of the Kohen. The Kohen had a special golden tablet almost put across his head, which had the name of Hashem on it. So we want to discuss tonight the Choshen HaMishpat. The Choshen is the breastplate, and the Gemara in Erchin tells us that the Choshen, when the Kohen Gadol, the different begonim of the Kohen Gadol, the different articles of clothing that the Kohen Gadol wears, forgave the Kohen Gadol for different averus that he did, or the different averus that the community did. And Choshen, it's known as not only as the Choshen, but it's known as the Choshen Mishpat. It is the breastplate of judgment. And therefore, why is it called the breastplate of judgment? Because it forgives for judgment. It has 2 things. Number one, the judgment that it does also, it can be done through, you can see a judgment, for example, years ago, this is in the time of, before the first temple, you had Chana, famous lady by the name of Chana, and Chana was a barren woman, and she comes to Beis HaMikdash to pray for children. Her husband is a man by the name of Elkanah, and she has another co-wife, another woman that is also married to Elkanah, whose name is Penina. Penina has 7 children. Chana has none. And Penina was very, very not nice. I guess there's no good way of saying it, but she was very mean to Chana in pushing Chana and trying to get Chana to pray, etc., etc. And Penina was punished terribly for the pain that she caused Chana, because even though she meant it for the right reasons, causing pain to another individual, even for the right reasons, is wrong. And so what happens is you have Eli, who is in the Beis HaMikdash, and Eli is looking out, Eli Cohen is looking out, and he sees this woman, and she's muttering to herself. Now, a lot of the halachas of tefillah, a lot of the halachas of davening are learned out from Chana and from the way she davened. But here she's muttering to herself, and he's not sure what this is all about, because he's never seen anybody pray like that. And he looks down at his choshen, he looks down at his breastplate, and the breastplate says, Shin Chof Reish Hey, which could be read as Kishera or Kisara. And she is kosher, she's doing something kosher, or Kisara, she is like Sarah Imenu, very special, and her prayer is very special. But it could also be read, and was read by Eli Cohen actually, as Shikora. Shikora meaning this woman's drunk. And he looks down at his breastplate and he sees Shin Chof Reish Hey, and he says, aha, Shikora, the woman is drunk, and that's why she's behaving the way she is. We have Purim coming up soon. You'll be able to witness drunken behavior firsthand. If you have people that like to drink in your household, you might be able to witness drunken behavior firsthand. You'll find oftentimes that drunk people walk around muttering to themselves. I remember years ago, I was going home. I was going back to yeshiva from I went to a certain Rav's house on the first night of Purim, or the second, really it wasn't the first night of Purim, it was the second night of Purim, which was the night of Purim in Yerushalayim. And he had given a shmuz. He had given a Mussar discourse about the special nature of Purim and about the kedusha, the holiness of Purim. And what ends up happening is this fellow had drunk a little bit too much wine, and literally the entire way home he muttered to himself, no simcha of just hoilulus. There's no simcha of just being levity, of just being happy. It has to be simcha shel mitzvah. It has to be only being happy for the mitzvah. And literally for 5 minutes, this guy walked home talking to himself, and that's all he said to himself. So you'll find drunk people mutter to themselves, and therefore when Eli HaKohen looks out at this woman, he thinks she's a shikara. He thinks the woman is drunk, when in reality, Kishera or Kisara, she was a kosher woman, and he gives her a blessing, and she actually does have a child after that. Now, this was the Choshen Mishpat. The Choshen over there gave you judgment for that. But it was not only for that, because it also, Rashi says, it's called the Choshen Mishpat, it's Mechaper al Kilkul Hadin, or al Ibus Hadin. It forgives the Kohen as well as Dayanim for having messed up in judgment or having the wrong judgment about people. So what does this have to do? Why is the Choshen Mishpat? So that's, on the one hand, you read about that, about the Choshen Mishpat. On the other hand, it's brought out by Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. He points to another thing about the Choshen that we read. And here you have to go back all the way to Pasha Shemos. In Pasha Shemos, you're on page 308 to 310. Moshe Rabbeinu is having a conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps on saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, I would like you to go to Mitzrayim. I'd like you to take out the Jewish people. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, I'm not good enough. No, the Jewish people won't listen to me. No. And then finally it comes to the bottom line. He says to him, look, they're not going to listen to me. And God says, I'll give you these signs and these symbols. They will listen to you. And now you're looking at page 308, Parak Dalet, 4th chapter, verse 13. Vayomer bi Hashem, please Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu says, please Hashem, shlach ma bi'at tishlach. Send with the individual whom you usually send, i.e., send with Aaron. Vayicha af Hashem Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets angry at Moshe at that point. Vayomer, and he says, hello, Aaron achicha Levi. Aaron, your brother, the Levite. Yodati, I know Kidabi Edabahu, that he will speak. V'gami nehu yotzeh likrasecha. He's on his way out to meet you. V'roacha, and he will see you. V'samach ben liba, and he will be happy in his heart. He will meet you, and he'll be happy with your triumph. Many times you have brothers that are they're locked in on sibling rivalry. And everything is, I'm clever, you're clever. I make more money, you make more money. I've got a better shidduch, you've got a better. Everything is about this constant sibling rivalry. But here you have HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu, your sibling, who until now was a leader of the Jewish people, will make his way out to meet you in the desert and will be ecstatic for seeing you, and he'll be so happy for your success. He's not going to say, oh, Nebuch, I've lost my success. It's the other way around. He's going to see you and he's going to be excited about the success that you're going to have, and he wants to be your second in command and he wants to help you. V'racha v'simach b'libo. So Rashi says there in verse 14. The samach v'racha v'samach b'libo. Umisham zacha lo kshat asava. Not like you think that he's going to be upset, that you're going to go up and you're going to become great. And rather, he will be happy. Umisham zacha Aaron, and this is why Aaron HaKohen had the great fortune le'edei hachoshen hanosan alalev. He was therefore allowed to have the choshen, the breastplate, on carrying the breastplate on himself, which was placed over the heart. So we see the choshen has two functions. Number one, it was given as a present to Aaron HaKohen for his happiness in Moshe Rabbeinu's, in the way Moshe Rabbeinu was promoted. And number two, it's also there to forgive for messing up in judgment. Says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, it's not a coincidence that those two things are being mentioned over here, but the two things are related. And he says the following: if you want to get good judgment, or more importantly, if you want to be able to give correct good judgment to other people, the best and almost the only way to do it is if you have good midos. People with bad character, automatically that bad character will have an effect on their opinions. It will have an effect on their judgment, and their clear judgment will be marred by their bad opinions. And therefore, that's why he says that you have to be careful. That's why the two of them are connected. The Choshen, which lies on Aaron HaKohen's heart, is there to remind us. It's on his heart because Aaron HaKohen had the good midos. Aaron HaKohen had the good character trait of being happy for his brother when his brother was raised above him. And therefore, that has to do with also with having a straight way of looking at the din, a straight way of looking at justice and not looking at justice in a perverted way. I think we spoke about this recently. And I mentioned that David Mintz has this as part of his, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. That's a truth. Everybody will have their own eyes, and their eyes see the world through their mind, through their feelings, through their emotions, and not only that, as I mentioned before, even in the shir that we gave on the davening, that at different times in your life, you will see the world differently. So if you are in a good place mentally, oftentimes, I was speaking to a friend of mine about this recently, and he said, if you're in a good place mentally and somebody comes to you with a challenge, you know what you'll say? Sure, I can do it. No problem. Why? Because you believe in yourself. You have that amazing feeling about yourself and say, you know, whatever it is, I think I can do it. Whereas if you are in a bad place mentally, sometimes even just leaving the house is very difficult. You want to go out and somebody says, you come meet me in the park. Just not feeling like it. I'm not feeling up to it. I'm just not feeling right. I've not been sleeping well. I'm having pain in my neck. I'm having these headaches. I'm getting nervous and anxiety of going outside. The same person. Once he's feeling great and the world is his. The world's his oyster. Once he's feeling bad and you ask him to do something that's well within his or her remit, that's something they could easily do, and they will turn to you and say, I just don't have it within me to do it. I just don't have the koyach, I just don't have the strength to do it. Why? Because we see the world as we are, not as it is. So we don't have objective vision. You don't look at a job and say to yourself, I have qualification A, B, and C. This should fall within my remit. I should be able to do it. Rather, sometimes you feel this is a dawdle. This is so easy. Of course I can do it. And sometimes you'll feel the other way around. No, there's no way I could manage this. There's no way I could do this. What's the difference? It's not you, because you're the same person. It's your state of mind. And so therefore, what we learn over here as well is that a person, and again, this is spoken about so many times by so many people when you learn Torah, is that Torah is not only there to give you a roadmap to life, a roadmap of these are the mitzvahs you should do. Wake up in the morning. This is how you wash your hands. This is how you put on tefillin. This is how you daven. But Torah is there to take a person's character and refine it in a way that a person becomes a better individual. And if a person can sit and learn Torah, and if a person can do mitzvahs, and he stays the same person that he's always been, it doesn't have any effect on him whatsoever, then there's something wrong with the Torah and the mitzvah that he's doing. A man once came to the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe, Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Kotzk, was very famous for his very pithy and very sharp sayings. And somebody once came to him and said to him the following, Rebbe, I've been through most of the Talmud. Very, very, very proud of himself. Rebbe, I've been through most of the Talmud. And the Kotzker Rebbe gave a look at him and he says, but how much of the Talmud has been through you? That's what we want to know. Not how much of Talmud did you learn. Yeah, you can open up a page of Talmud, you can learn Talmud. In Korea, it's become a thing that people study Talmud. Even the maskilim, the people that had left Judaism entirely, they would sit on a Shabbos afternoon with lit cigarettes discussing the Talmud because the Talmudic discourse and Talmudic discussion were extremely interesting to them. But the Talmud didn't do anything for them. It didn't change them. It didn't make them into better people. But if you want to learn Torah, Torah has to make you into a better person. And if you want to be able to become a good judge to somebody that has a straight view, straight vision, that sees the world as it is, and the world in a positive light, and will be able to judge things correctly, if you change yourself to become a better person, a more giving person, a person who is slower to anger, a person who is not as arrogant. Getting rid of all these bad character traits changes you as an individual. And once you change as an individual, the way you see the world changes. And you'll see the world much more clearly and much more correctly than you'd ever see the world through the eyes of somebody who is full of his own negias, who is full of his own ideas and himself, and not really having a straight way of seeing the world. So that is the idea that I wanted to share with you today about the Pasha. And now I'd like to move on to sharing an idea in the Megillah. We read in the Megillah, right at the beginning of the Megillah, the following. So if you have an art scroll Megillah, so you're looking at page 1252, 1252. If you have a different Chumash, I don't know which page you would be on, but try to look so either at the end of Shmos or at the end of the entire Chumash. You'll find over there a Megillah, and the Megillah starts off, it was in the days of Achashverosh, who was the king from Hodut and Kush, from India all the way through to Ethiopia, 127 countries. In those days, Achashverosh sat on his throne in Shushan, and it was the 3rd year of his kingdom. He made a great party for everybody, for all his servants, etc. And he brought in people from all around the country, and from all over the world. He brought in people, and he showed them his greatness of his kingdom. And he wanted to show you for 180 days. He shows them this party. And when those 180 days are finished, the king makes another 7-day party for the elders to the youngest people of Shushan Abira in his inner sanctum. And it tells you about what it looked like. Chor karpas utcheas, hangings of white, fine cotton and blue wool, held with cords of fine linen and purple wool upon silver rods and marble pillars. The couches of gold and silver were on pavement of green and white, and shell and onyx marble. The drinks were served in golden goblets, no two goblets alike, and royal wine in abundance according to the bounty of the king. You give you this whole description over here of the party of Pharaoh. Now, it's very strange that the Torah would do such a thing, or that the Megillah was written with Ruach HaKodesh. The Gemara says the Megillah was written with Ruach HaKodesh, brings a whole bunch of different proofs for it. The final proof, and the main proof is that we say Kimu v'Kiblu, that the Jewish people accept upon themselves what was already accepted in Shemayim. So that's how we learn it out. But the Megillah was written with Ruach HaKodesh. It was written with divine inspiration. So the Megillah was written with divine inspiration. What's the point of this party? What's the point of going on and on about this party? And what are we to learn from this whole story of the party that he makes? Because you have this party that goes on and on for 180 days, and then another 7 days, and then he calls in Vashti, and Vashti doesn't want to come, and everything falls apart, and the end of the party is that the party wasn't a great party at all. So why did he do this? The answer is that Achashverosh decided that in his 3rd year of his reign, the Gemara tells us that he had calculated that the 70 years of the Jews coming out of Babel had now commenced. They had finished. Sorry, not only commenced, they had finished. God said that after 70 years, after 70 years, I will free you, I will take you out. And he calculated the 70 years, and he says, hey, the 70 years have happened and the Jews haven't come out of Babel. I.e., God has forgotten about them, and therefore he makes a massive party to celebrate the fact that the Jewish people will never be redeemed again. Strangely enough, the Jewish people actually attend that party. Why would you attend a party that celebrates your own downfall? But be that as it may, the Jewish people attend this party, and the other thing that he's doing is he wants to show off his wealth. He has so much wealth that he received from Nebuchadnezzar, and he makes a party for 180 days, and every day he shows people different treasures that he has and different things, and people are just so impressed. And for 180 days he's impressed everyone all around the world, and people walk away saying, this guy Achashverosh is the king of kings. He knows how to throw a party like nobody's business. It's just the most amazing guy, and he's so wealthy, and he's such a great king, he's such a big king, etc., etc. Have any of you ever been to see the royal jewels? I've been in Vienna. You go to see the royal jewels, or you can go to another area in Austria, in Vienna also, another part of there's a winter palace there called the Hofburg. And you go to the Hofburg, you can see over there not just the royal jewels, you can see the royal cutlery and the royal dishes. You cannot imagine how many different sets of dishes they had, and how fancy and ornate they were, and how much cutlery they had, and how many jewels and diamonds, and you see the crown, etc., etc. It's just unbelievable. And this is only a small snippet of the real wealth that the Habsburg Empire had. And similarly, he was showing everybody a small snippet of the wealth that this fellow Achashverosh had, and he's trying to impress everybody with his wealth, and people were duly impressed. Wow, look at this guy, look at this king. And then for 7 days, he makes a party for his nearest and dearest, the people of his town. And you'd think, by the way, after 100, the Sefer I saw part of this in says the following. He says, imagine you go to a wedding, right? So I've been to weddings in shul. So the wedding, you get there for about 2:30, there's the tish. Then at 3:30 is the chuppah. Then at 4:30, from 4:30 to 6 comes the most boring part of the wedding, where everybody stands around with a cup in hand, making small talk to other people, waiting for the party to start. It's the worst part of the whole wedding because you just don't know what to do with yourself. I often, if I'm stuck somewhere, I actually bring my computer with me and I find a quiet room and I do an hour and a half worth of work because I just can't bear, the finger food. You just eat and eat and eat that finger food for no reason. And then when it comes the meal, you're full. You can't eat anything anymore because you've had so many little burgers, you had so many little pizzas with shawarma, so many fish and chips, and you're sort of, if you were to wring your arm, you'd get oil coming out of it because it's so much oil that you've just had. That's the first thing. But also it's really a waste of time. So you go around, you say hello to everybody, and then you find yourself a quiet place and you just spend the time over there. And then the wedding starts at 6, and then you bench by 9:30, 10. But by like 12 o'clock, it's carriages. Yeah. If the wedding goes on till 1 o'clock, it's long. If the wedding goes on till 2 o'clock, it's very long. That's right, 12 hours. Imagine the wedding went on till 6 in the morning. You're like, come on, okay, finish this thing already. At one point or another, everyone's going to go. Imagine it went on for 24 hours. After 24 hours, you'd be like, this is the wedding that never ends. It just goes on and on. My friend, it just keeps on going and going. And another day and another day. Imagine a party of 180 days. What a crazy party that was. 180 days. I mean, I don't even know how people partied for so long, how people drank for so long. What did people do? But for 180 days, they're sitting there having a party. And then you have this 7-day party. And at the end, you have Vashti Hamalka. And we speak about all the wealth that Achashverosh has and how he creates the whole thing. And he says at the end of the entire thing, he calls in his wife and he says to his wife, come on in. And his wife says, no, not coming. But not only does she say not coming, she sends back a very, very aggressive message. She says, hey, listen, stable boy. You were the stable boy of my grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar, and you don't know how to hold your alcohol. And so when you drink, I know certain people that hold their alcohol, they hold the liquor really, really well. And I know certain people, as soon as they have 1 or 2 drinks, they get loud, they say lewd things, they say things they shouldn't say. And I was like, oh goodness, he had a drink. Oh no, this is going to be embarrassing. And you just sit next to the guy the entire meal, cringing and hoping he's not going to say anything else that's embarrassing. So she says, you don't know how to hold your drink. You don't know what you're doing. What are you saying? What are you talking about? I'm not coming, stable boy. And Achashverosh now suddenly, he's told everybody, he says, okay, guys, the pinnacle, the highlight. My wife Vashti is going to come out wearing only a crown and she's going to dance in front of all of you. And Vashti says, you what? I'm not coming. And he's like, but I promised everyone you're coming out. And she says, just because you promised doesn't mean I'm coming out, stable boy. You better get your act together, you drunkard, I'm not coming. And now suddenly, Achashverosh has been stood up. And suddenly the party is really, really going downhill. And now we read the following. You read in verse 12 of the Megillah, Vatamoina Malka Vashti, the queen Vashti refused Lava Bidvar Melch to come because the king said so, Hashem Yad Sarisim, which was in the hand conveyed by the commanders, by different people, the chamberlains. The king was very incensed, and his anger burned in him. What is this double thing that he was very incensed and his anger burned within him? So the Mefarshim explained there was 2 things. Number 1, he was really angry at the way she treated him. He said, come, and he expected her to say, yes, sir, yes, your majesty. And instead she says, no, you drunkard, I'm not showing up. But more importantly, what did she just do? What did this woman with 1 or 2 sentences do? She took 187 days of partying, 187 days of showing off your wealth and showing everybody how great you are and how rich you are and how big you are and who you are and what a big shot, etc., etc. She took all of that with 2 sentences and went, gone. Because now everyone's saying they're going, Achashverosh, where's your wife? It's very embarrassing, but she couldn't come yet. Well, isn't she supposed to come? We've been waiting for an hour for her already. Yeah, well, finally they got it out of him. She's not coming. And everybody in the party is going like, this guy's got no control over his wife. He's a henpecked husband. With all his money, with all his wealth, with all of everything, his wife's got him in her back pocket. And then everybody's making fun of him. This is the king. Yeah, you can be a king. You can be anything you want to. In this house, you're vice president. In this house, you'll never be the number one. I'm the number one, says Vashti. Oh boy. And now you look at everything that has been built up and that crumbles down within seconds. The entire thing falls apart. Why? Stupid idea. And this is what the first parak is telling us. We go on to tell you the wealth of Achashverosh. We go on to tell you how great he was and how big he was and how many days he made a party, etc., etc. And in the end of the entire thing, it was all worthless. It was all for naught. Because his wife, with one well-timed comment, took 187 days worth of showing off, and 187 days worth of partying, and 187 days worth of letting the world know that Ahasuerus was in charge, and with one quick swoop, boom, the whole thing falls apart. And that's the unbelievable thing that she's able to do. And that is one of the greatest lessons that we have in life. The lesson of the first parak of the Megillah is, if you think that Olam Hazeh, if you think that earthly pleasures are going to make you happy, if you think you can show off to people about how much money you have, or how big your house is, or how many cars you have, or your yacht, or your helicopter, or your real estate portfolio, or your stocks, etc., etc. If you think that that is worth anything, it's all worth nothing. It's not really worth anything comparatively to what's really worth something, number one. And number two, it all disappears. It's all fleeting. It's not something that's there forever. It's here one day and out the window the next. Within 20 minutes, within half an hour, the entire cover that Ahasuerus had, gone, obliterated. So much so that when he asks for advice from his royal chamberlains, Memuchan steps forward. He says, listen, my king, this is not only an assault on you, this is an assault on all the men of this country. We're all going to come home and they're all going to say, you think I need to listen to you? I'm your wife. I'm in charge here. I learned from Vashti. She's in charge on the royal palace and I'm in charge here anyway. Now, for those of us who didn't know, there are two types of houses. There are those houses where the women are in charge, and there are those houses where the men don't realize that the women are in charge. But there are only two types of households anyway. The women are always in charge. So what Haman was trying to do over there wasn't really that clever. And everybody came home and goes, the men are in charge, the women are in charge. We all know what's going on. There's no point in making this. This edict is not going to help you. As my wife once heard from somebody, a very, very clever line. They say, the man is the head of the household. And they said, yes, but the woman is the neck and she turns the head any which way she wants to. And it's true. That's what happens in the household. And as I said, for many, many husbands, they will like to say that it's not like that, but we all know that is the way it is. That's the way it is. I often say when people say to me, that Judaism is such a patriarchal society, I said, have you ever walked into a Jewish home? Have you ever seen a rabbi walk into his house and he's in charge? No rabbi walks into his house and he's in charge. Why are we saying Judaism is a patriarchal society? Every rabbi, every husband, every person is being told by their wife what to do. Let's get it clear. So you have this entire thing here that's come apart. And all that can come apart in a second. People have had big businesses. They've come apart in a second. People have had homes. They've been lost in a second to natural disasters. People from one second to the next can be left homeless, chas v'shalom, can be left penniless, chas v'shalom, can be left without anything. All those great things that they looked up to, all those things that they used as their status symbols, to give them some kind of importance, in reality, they mean nothing. They won't get you anywhere and they won't do anything for you. And really, the only true thing to look for is real meaning. And meaning can be found in family, and it can be found in friends, and it can be found in Torah, and it can be found in mitzvahs, and it can be found in davening. There's so many things you'll find meaning in. And that meaning lasts forever. Nobody can take that away from you. People in the concentration camps still had the ability to say no. Eat that chazer. No, I'm not eating the chazer. You see that dust in the distance? That's the Russian army. They're coming to liberate you. Eat that chazer. And the man says, absolutely not. I've lived through the entire concentration camp eating kosher, and I'm not going to eat the chazer for you now. And they shot him as the Russians were arriving. That's the greatness. You can't take that away from somebody. That's the greatness of what we're able to do with our ruchnius. We cannot take real friendships, last forever. Real relationships hopefully last forever. Torah, mitzvahs, these are things you will take with you forever. You'll take them with you forever and ever. So you spend your time and you build all these things, and we spend so much time in our lives building the things that are really worthless, building the things that come crashing down within a second, building the things that are so not important. And instead of building the things that are unimportant, learn from Achashverosh. Don't look at the 187-day party and go, oh, what a shame, 187 days wasted on the last day and the last 20 minutes. Where now he's left without his wife, he's left without his party, and he's left without his cupboard. Oh, well done. 187 days worth of money down the drain. Well, that was worthwhile. Waste of time, energy, emotion, finance, all that went out the window. And instead of seeing it that way, if you realize that you need to invest in what's true and what's real, and this is what Purim teaches us, don't invest your entire life in rubbish. Don't invest in garbage that's never going to help you and will never do anything for you. You really want to be invested in what's true and what's real. And if you can be invested in what's true and what's real, then you'll reap the eternal benefit. And that's a benefit that nobody can take away from you. It's yours and will remain yours forever. So that's the idea that I wanted to share with you, the two ideas. Thank you very much for joining me, even though the hour is late. Next week, again, it'll be 9:15, because we're having next week, we're going to be doing Zemiros, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're doing 2 weeks of Pesach davening. Then I'm going to do the Chazan. So there'll be 3 more sessions in the next 4 weeks. 1 next week, then a break, and then 2 more sessions after that. So that we'll have sessions on the Haggadah in the next 4 weeks as well as the Parshas. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. Thank you for those on Torah anytime. And please do join us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.